All right, everybody, welcome back to All Things Outdoors. I've got something special for you today. It's my DIY hammock. Let's get started. All right, guys, I'm super pumped about the new hammock I just put together. I went through, and one of the things I wanted to do was find a fabric that was a little more durable and a little more sturdy for myself. I currently was using the 1.0 Hexon, which is good up to about 200 pounds, but I wanted something with a little less stretch. So I decided to try the 1.2 Robic. When I decided I wanted to make this hammock, there's a couple things I wanted to look at. One was the overall length. I currently have an 11-foot hammock. I'm 6 foot tall, and that's plenty of room for me. In fact, I wanted to shorten it up just a hair. So I thought maybe 2 inches to shorten it up, come in right at 10 foot 10 inches to kind of take up that little extra space. And to combat the extra space, I also wanted to see if I could go with a little wider hammock. I was thinking just maybe get a little better diagonal lay, and it proved to be wonderful. So what I ended up looking for was the 1.2 Robic XL fabric. I found that on Rip Stop by the Roll, which has all of your hammock DIY procedures, fabrics, components, anything that you could possibly think of that you would need to make a hammock. Wonderful website to go, and not to mention it was shipped very fast. I went with the Robic 1.2 XL because of the width. It comes in at a 67-inch wide fabric, and I ended up ordering 4 yards or 12 feet to make the body of the hammock. Obviously, when it comes to 12 feet of fabric long and 67 inches wide, that's way more of a hammock body than what I need. So I did need to trim it down. I trimmed my hammock down to was 136 inches long by 63 inches wide. That would allow for the hems on all 4 sides as well. I could then bring my hammock in on the exact length and width that I was wanting. When I was going to cut the fabric, one of the things I looked at was how am I going to maintain a straight line to where I don't start off all crooked and then I'm trying to fix it on the hem. What I ended up doing was taking the outside of the fabric, folding it in to the exact measurement that I wanted, using a little bit of masking tape to hold it in place on the way down, and then I would just follow the edge of that fabric to get my straight cut. And it worked out extremely well. I started off with a nice rectangular piece of fabric that I was then able to hem, and it made making my hems a lot more simple. The second thing I needed was the thread. So I was looking at all different types of thread. I previously, when I made my daughter's hammock, I made it with a nylon thread, which worked really well, and it's very, very strong. But I was looking for something that would stitch together a little easier. So I jumped on the Hammock forum, which is a vast array of knowledge when it comes to any type of hammock build or hammock knowledge in general, and started asking some questions, and I came up with the same answer, or I received the same answer from those guys, the Mara 70 by Gutterman. So that was the thread that I ended up using, and guess what? That's on Rip Stop by the Roll as well also. I tried to stay between about a ½ inch, as close to a ½ inch hem as I could. I made 2 folds and then used pins all the way down the sides of the hammock. That way it just made it easier for me to put in my stitch. I figure since I'm using a neon yellow thread on black fabric, I really wanted to take my time and try to make it look as clean and as straight as possible. And it worked out fairly well, for a rookie, I might say.
Total radar blackout over a 13-kilometer area. Let's do a diagnostic check. Excuse me, sir. The radar may be malfunctioning, but the infrared is totally off.
On the gathered end, it's actually triple stitched for extra strength. The same process that I did the sides. I got it straight, used pins to hold it in place, to hold the fabric in place, and put my first stitch in. Then, not much of a distance in between the stitching. I try to keep them fairly close together. But once the first stitch was in, going across the top of the hammock is very simple to add 2 more stitches for that extra strength. So with the Ridgeline, I went with a 2.2 Zing It. There is one other option, a 1.75 Zing It. Now the 2.2 comes in at 0.8 grams per foot, whereas the 1.75 Zing It comes in at 0.6 grams per foot. So you're talking about a 0.2 grams per foot difference. Not really enough weight, I believe, to worry about for the strength difference. The 2.2 comes in at 650 pound break strength, which is this one here. The 1.75 comes in at 500 pound break strength. And when I'm talking about the pitch of the hammock, we all know that we don't always get the perfect 2 trees to hang from. So to me, that extra strength was worth it. Now the one question is, how do I figure out the length that the Ridgeline needs to be for the hammock? I took the overall length of the body of the hammock, which was 10 feet, 10 inches, and I took that times 83%, which brought the Ridgeline's need length to be at 108 inches. Now the whoopee sling, I ended up just ordering that off of DutchwareGear.com, and I ended up picking the 7/64 am steel with an 8-inch lead. I don't need much more of a lead than that. I have ordered longer leads from other manufacturers of whoopee slings when I was converting over Hennessy, but for this project, 8-inch lead was plenty. And I ended up just taking and making a special tool. I had an old arrow that I ripped the feathers off of, and the knock of that arrow fits nicely onto this am steel, and then I was able to run it up the channel that I made to actually rue and get the loop across, and then I just ran the other end of the whoopee sling through the loop and drawed it in. That tool actually made it a lot easier to run the whoopee sling through the channel, and it can be done with continuous loops, cinch buckles, anything else that you may want to run through a hammock channel. The stuff sack I made is actually a double-ended stuff sack. I tried to keep it as minimal as I could. That way I could really pack down a smaller space. I didn't really want that extra fabric if I didn't need it. So I figure really, if I'm going to make a stuff sack, I'm going to make it a stuff sack to where I have to stuff my hammock in it. So, but being double-ended, it makes it nice to where I hook up one side and then I can stretch out the other side and the hammock never hits the ground. So now that I've got this thing completely unpacked, I might as well hang it up, and let's take a look at it. And here is the hammock hanging up. I want to show a couple things here. One, Dutch, this is brilliant. Just a super simple thing that saves a lot of headache is a different color bead. Let's see if I can zoom in on that for you. A different color bead on the head end versus the foot end whoopee sling, so I can actually distinguish which end is going to be the head end before I even pull it out of the stuff sacks. I plan on leaving the stuff sack on it at all times, of course, since a double-ended stuff sack makes it simple for tear down and deploy. The Ridgeline fits very well. I did make out of some scrap a little pocket organizer, again going with the same yellow and black theme. The stitching, I'll give you a closer look at it, did come out pretty well, so I am pretty happy with it. And another feature I did add to it was the knotty mod. Now, the shock cord is probably a lot bigger than what I needed. I did want a thicker shock cord for one reason. I just wanted to accent the yellow on black. Obviously, it may be a bit overkill. I don't believe it's hurting the function of the Naughty Mod, but I just think it looks cool. Now, I'd probably be remiss if I didn't at least lay in the hammock and showed you a little bit of what it looked like laying in it. Extremely flat lay, no calf ridge at all. I couldn't be more happy with the measurements of the hammock. You know, some people may want that extra space, some people may want a little less, but for me, again, I'm 6 foot tall, right at 200 pounds, couldn't be more comfortable. The fabric does not feel like it stretches at all. Extremely comfortable. It doesn't feel very abrasive. It's not as soft, obviously, as the 1.0 Hexon, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it stretches at all. Which is, I was getting a little bit of stretch, obviously being on the borderline limit of that fabric. I've got an extremely flat lay with absolutely no calf ridge, which was probably the two things I just wanted to make sure I maintained the most out of making my own hammock. So I couldn't be more happy with this outcome, and I can't wait to actually get it out on the trail and use it. One more thing I'm going to be looking for, obviously, is going to be a yellow tarp with black trim. So I may be looking at underground quilts and seeing what they have to offer. As I almost forgot to include one thing, the overall weight. The weight of this hammock system, including the suspension and the stuff sack, ended up being a little over 10 ounces. It ended up being 10.3 ounces total. So again, a very good weight for a very good structurally sound hammock that can hold up to 225 pounds. Be sure to subscribe for more videos in the future, and hopefully you'll see this beast in the woods soon. Maybe with a yellow tarp above it would be fantastic. So outside of that, guys, I'll catch you later.